Hello class, welcome back to Unit 4, Dividing Fractions. We are on to Lesson 6. Alright, we have an exciting, challenging task ahead of us today, so let's get right to it. The first task statement says, representing groups of fractions with tape diagrams. Okay, so before we use blocks or the digital applet, right, but now we're going to use tape diagrams. So in this case, to make sense of the question, how many 2/3 are in 1, Andre wrote equations and drew a tape diagram. Okay, and so he thought about it, thought, okay, if there's going to be some 2/3 in 1, we're going to have 2/3, and then we're going to keep on adding 2/3 over and over again until we get to 1. Okay, so if it's repeated addition, that's actually the same thing as multiplication. It's 2/3 times some number, or they can write it like this. I can say some number times 2/3, and that's going to give us 1. So that's where his multiplication equation came from. His division equation came from thinking about it like you've got one whole, and you're going to split that up into pieces that are the size 2/3. So if you split it up into those pieces, that means that you were dividing it, right? So one whole divided by 2/3 equals some amount, right? So these equations will give you the same answer, okay? It's just one's multiplication, one's division. All right, so here's the tape diagram. You can see he shows one whole right here. This is the whole thing. And then he's splitting it up into the parts, right? So if he's dividing it up by 2/3, you can see here's the piece 2/3. So that's one group of 2/3. All right. And then if you look at how much is left over, you can see that it's one piece out of the two pieces that make up the group here. So it's 1 out of 2, or 1/2. All right, so you can basically see there's this one piece that's missing, and so this is talking about one whole, which is a group of 2/3, and then a half of that piece is left over, and so you're talking about 1/2. Okay, so I know that's probably going to be a little bit difficult for some of you guys, but I want you guys to spend some time and look at it and think about it, and then look at these next coming examples as well, and hopefully this will help make sense for you guys. So it's 1/2 for this one. All right, for number 2, write a multiplication equation and a division equation for each of the following questions. Draw a tape diagram to find the solution. And you can use the grid to draw to help you if you'd like. So I think I'm going to use the grid just to show you guys. So, all right, so let's start with the equations. How many 3/4 are in 1? So you're talking about taking a piece that's the size 3/4, and you're going to keep adding a bunch of those pieces together until you get to 1. Okay, and as you might be aware, there's not going to be very many, right? But we are going to be talking about repeated addition or multiplication, right? So just as we saw before, same kind of question here. How many 2/3 are in 1? We took 2/3 times some unknown number to get to 1. We can do the same thing here. We can take 3/4, and it's going to be multiplied times some unknown number, and that's going to equal 1. All right, now, and we can also think about that in terms of division. We can think about it in terms of there being one whole, and that we're going to divide that up by the size of the pieces, which are 3/4. And that's going to give us a certain number of pieces. All right, so that's what we're going to be finding out here. We're going to be using the tape diagram to help show this, okay? So for the tape diagram, the idea here, if we talk about one whole, and this one whole is being broken up into pieces, into 4 pieces each. That's because of this denominator here, 3/4. Okay, so we want to take one whole and break that up into 4 pieces. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show 4 pieces here. You can start anywhere you'd like. How about we start just here, just for that. We need 4 pieces. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so and then I'm going to put a little barrier here so we can see that this is what we are talking about. We're talking about these 4. All right, now within this, we need to shade in according to the size of the groups, right? So in this case, the groups are 3/4. So if this is 4, we need 3 of these. So I'm going to take the little shading tool here, and I'm going to color in 3. And you don't have to be exact, but just kind of get 3 shaded in here so we can get the main idea here, all right? So that is one group of 3/4, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just write in here, this is one group of 3/4. I'm going to make that smaller and then slide it over just a little bit. Okay, there we go. One group of 3/4 right there. That's one piece. So we know that we have one piece, but we have some left over, but it's not going to be another whole group of 3, right? So right straight away, we know that in here we have one whole group and a part left over. Now, here is where it can be tricky. The part that's left over, it's one box, right? And the whole group is 3 boxes, right? So what that means is that it's what's left over to fill in is 1/3 of another group. So it's 1 and 1/3. Okay, that's very important. It's very easy to get confused because it looks like it's 1/4 of the whole thing, but in this case, the whole thing, the whole group that we're dividing it by is 3/4. So this would be one group, and the part left over is 1/3 of that group because it's one box out of the 3 boxes. Okay, definitely a little bit tricky, I am sure. So let's see if we can continue that, build off of that here with the next one here. How many 2/3 are in 3? All right, so same idea. We're going to be taking 2/3 and we're going to be adding them over and over again until we get to 3. All right, so if we're adding 2/3 over and over again, that's repeated addition, which means that's the same thing as multiplication, right? So for our multiplication equation, we can say we're going to take 2/3 and we're going to multiply it by, well, we don't know yet, right? Some unknown amount. And that's going to equal 3. So that's our multiplication equation. Now, another equation that is going to give us the same answer but involves division, we think about it like we take the whole part here, the 3, and we see that we are going to be dividing it up into pieces that are 2/3 in size. So it's 3 divided, spelling it bad, okay, divided by the size of the piece, which is 2/3. And that's going to equal some unknown, right? So we have to see what that's going to be. So when we look at what we have here, if we have 3 holes that's being divided, then how big are the pieces being divided to? Well, if they talk about 2/3, then these pieces are all going to have 3 parts each. So 3 groups of 3 is what we need. So 3 groups of 3, if I just start here again, I'm going to have, that's one group of 3, right? 1, 2, 3. 2 groups of 3. 3 groups of 3, right? So 3 groups of 3, that should be 9 spots, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spots. Okay, so that's how many spots we're going to work with, and this represents 3. Okay, the whole thing is 3. In fact, why don't I put a little box above here so I hope you see that there. That represents 3. Now, we need to break it down into the parts. The way that we are breaking it down, the parts in this case, are 2/3 each. Okay, so each 2/3 represents one part. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use different colors. I'm going to color in 2 boxes, right? So if this is one of the pieces, and we need to make the group into 2 of these. All right, so that's 2. Okay, so that's one group. All right, now I'm going to get another group of 2. I'm going to use a different color. So let's use yellow for the next color. This is going to be a group of 2. There is 2. Okay, so now I have 2 groups, right? Then I need to get 2 more boxes, and I'm going to use a different color for that. Let's use this color. Okay, 2 more boxes. There we go. So now I have 3 groups of 2. All right, I've got more boxes to fill in, so let's get another color for another 2 boxes. We'll use light blue here. 2 more boxes, right? 2 more boxes. All right, that went a little bit over into the orange box, but we can ignore that, right? We can see right now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and then a little bit left over. So I know here for my answer, I know my answer is going to be 4 and something, right? So now we have to be careful to see what that something is going to be. Well, that something is going to be what one box is, right? As compared to the groups that we're grouping this in. So our groups involve 2 boxes. This is just one of the boxes. It's 1 of 2. So 1 of 2, well, that's 1/2. So we're talking about 4 and 1/2. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. Let's do one more, see if we can get the hang of it, okay? How many 3 halves are in 5? Okay, well, again, for the equations, we're following kind of the same idea here. It's the same situation that's going on. We're talking about taking a part here and seeing how many times that part fits into something bigger. So how many 3/2 fit into 5? Well, that means we're going to take 3/2 and we're going to multiply it times some unknown. And that's going to give us 5. Okay? And as you might have guessed by now, that means we can also say that if we have the whole thing, it's 5, and we divide it by, divided by how big the parts are. The parts are 3/2. That's going to equal something that we have to figure out. So with the tape diagram, let's use that to figure this out. Here we have 5 holes, and we're breaking them into parts with 2 parts each, right? So that means 5 groups of 2. So for our line, we need 5 groups of 2. Well, that's going to be 10, right? Let's see here. 1, 2. That's one group. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So this represents, in this case, 5. That's 5 holes. Now, when we look at how we're dividing it up into 3/2. So 3 groups, right? So what that means, each group is worth a half, and there's 3 of them. All right. So I'm going to show you this in another diagram for right now. But what this means is we're going to need to select 3 of these. Okay, 3 of these is what we're going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and use different colors for each of them, right? So it's going to be 3 at a time. So here is 3. All right, these are each worth a half each. Okay, so that's one group. And then you need another group with a different color, another group of 3. So why don't we use this shade here for 3 more. There's that. Try to shade in a little bit, but don't have to get too out of control with it. All right, and then let's see, I've got room for another group. Let's get another color. Let's use this shade of orange. All right, so another 3 right here. So 1, 2, 3. Go through here. Okay, so I've got a little bit left over, but not another 3 boxes. So if I look at my answer, it's going to involve 3 holes and then a little extra. So this little extra is 1 box, okay? But this 1 box, we need to know what that means in relation to the size of the parts, right? So if the size of the parts were, there were 3 boxes, right? So it's going to be 1 out of 3 boxes. If they had 3 whole boxes, that would be another 1 hole, right? 3 here, that's 1 hole. 3, this is 1 hole. 3, this is 1 hole. Here, we only have 1 of the boxes. We only have 1 out of 3. So that means we have 1/3. So it's 3 and 1/3. Let me put a space in here so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so I'll leave this here. You can take a look at that for a couple of seconds. You can certainly pause it if you'd like. And then I'll show you what the diagrams look like on another screen as well. Here we go. Okay, so you can see here are the equations, and here are their tape diagrams. And what they have, which was a little bit hard for me to fill in with our program here, was the value of each box. You can see each box here was worth 1/4, and there were 3 of them, so that's how they get 3/4. And then there was 1 out of the 3 boxes, right? So this was the really tricky part, okay? It's easy to think of this as being 1 and 1/4, but it's 1 and 1/3. Same thing here, right? You can see how they go there. Each box is worth 1/3. Okay, they didn't fill in the rest there, but they just wanted to get the idea. This is one group of 2/3, 1/3 and 1/3. And this is one group of 3/2, 1/2, 1/2, and 1/2. And they go through and you can see the work there. Okay, well, I hope this wasn't too bad. All right.